Thank you very much. Our next speaker is very, very qualified. Served as Prime Minister in Ethiopia between 2012 and 2018. He has also served as Deputy Prime Minister, served as Foreign Minister, served as Minister for Social Affairs and Government, and also Governor of the Southern Regional State for 6 years. He has a foundation that particularly takes care of the health of mothers and children. And so as Nigeria desires a future for our mothers, for our children, and for our economy, it's very fitting that a man like this delivers a keynote address. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, join me as I welcome here His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn Bush, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, to deliver the keynote address. I welcome you, Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by His Excellency, the Vice President, Your Excellencies, State Governors, Your Excellency, Dr. Zainab Ahmed, Minister of Finance, Budget, and National Planning, Excellencies, Ministers, Your Excellencies, leadership of Nigerian Economic Summit Group, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to be at the laudable occasion of the Nigerian Economic Summit, NES27, on this day. Standing on existing protocols, I want to commend the sponsors and facilitators, particularly the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, Nigeria's Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget, and National Planning, as well as key private sector players and development partners for putting together this auspicious event. I would like also to thank the NESG for finding me worthy to contribute my thoughts to this fiercely urgent, all-important conversation of how to secure the future of Africa. Yes, you heard that right. This is really about Africa. It's not just Nigeria. I personally believe that when you secure the future of Nigeria, you secure the future of Africa. Nigerians are 1 in 5 Africans. And it is on this very note that I want to especially appreciate the broad-mindedness of the organizers of this event in thinking it wise to invite someone from other parts of the continent to contribute to this conversation. Today, across the globe, millions have lost their source of livelihoods. Economies are struggling to stay afloat, and businesses, especially small businesses, which sustain most economies, are grappling for survival. In Nigeria, as in many other sub-Saharan African countries, as captured by 2 of the 5 pillars of this summit, issues like increasing level of insecurity, decreasing quality of life are evidenced by high number of out-of-school children and skyrocketing poverty rate, subdued and non-inclusive growth, poorly designed and inconsistent public policies, and disruptive efforts of new technologies all have combined to highlight the urgent need to evolve to keep the ship afloat and build a world that creates and expands economic opportunities for all. As noted by Mr. Asiu Ighodalo, the chairman of the NESG, in his address at NES27, I quote, "Clearly, we do not have the luxury to wait. We must seize the urgency of now and and the will to change," end of quote. Distinguished participants, I'm sure you'd agree with me that given the happenings in many economies of the world today, and Nigeria in particular, there could not be a better theme than the one chosen for this summit: securing our future, the fierce urgency of now. The theme of this year's summit is timely and apt considering the socio-economic conditions that African economies, Nigeria inclusive, are currently facing, with insecurity at the core of instability and deteriorating social inclusion outcomes that are poverty and unemployment. These social problems has pervaded African economies. It is therefore of critical importance that we devise means to tackle these issues and secure the future of generations yet unborn. In creating this urgent world, I would quickly say that collaborations between nations, organizations, the public and private sectors is a prerequisite and ideas of the essence. And that is what this summit is about: sharing of ideas, building of consensus, and development of framework for actions. So, on that backdrop, I am pleased to share insights from my experience of almost 2 decades in leading Ethiopia and one of the largest states in Ethiopia. The 3 key efforts that made significant difference in the Ethiopian economy and has kept the country on the path of sustained and inclusive growth are: number 1, commitment to accelerated and rapid economic growth and transformation; number 2, agricultural development-led industrialization, or we call it ADLI, as core to begin with; and number 3, a strong international partnership with all who can contribute to this end. In Ethiopia, since 1991, successive administrations have shown great commitment to transforming the country's economy. We were all disastrous and obsessed of seizing every opportunity to move the country away from the history of poverty and insecurity. This commitment was further strengthened in the early 2000s when the country had sustained growth rates of about 10% per annum. I would say at this juncture that in any country, if you want to move high in the economic growth, you should secure at least 7% of the economic growth. Beginning from 2003, the Ethiopian economy tripled in size and recorded impressive decline in poverty, with national poverty rate falling from 44% in 2000 to 22% in 2018 when I left office, and now 20% in 2020. On the back of the foundation laid, Ethiopia is projected to lift 22 million people out of extreme poverty by 2030, reducing the percentage of Ethiopians living in extreme poverty to 3.9%. The basis to this trajectory is that the Ethiopian government has led rural and agricultural development, leading to higher incomes for smallholder peasant farmers and pastoralists, has been central to its rapid and sustained economic growth success. Besides, the state-led and agricultural development sustained and shared growth and poverty reduction from 44% to 20% in nearly 2 decades is also associated with two other essential policies and preconditions. Ethiopia has given the highest priority to promoting inclusive agricultural transformation by means of allocating at least 17% of its annual budget to invest in irrigation, extension services, by deploying around 60,000 extension agents, and agricultural research for improved and climate resilient crop varieties. In addition, credit facilities, subsidization of inputs such as fertilizers, and improved seeds were readily available. Market infrastructure for the produces are facilitated. Storage facilities, rural roads, construction, and rural electrification has taken the major portion of the investment. In contrast, in many African countries, including Nigeria, agriculture and rural development was largely neglected after independence. This is clearly seen from the proportion of national budget allocated for the sector within in most cases below 5%. Sound macroeconomic policy, firstly, is a precondition for economic growth. Economic freedom, at least for smallholder peasant farmers, including pastoralists and small-scale entrepreneurs, is the other variable associated with positive turning points. The calls for courageous decisions, particularly investing in pro-poor, pro-rural spendings. I would argue, therefore, sustained and shared growth with rapid poverty reduction takes place when and only when all three policy preconditions, namely sound macroeconomic management, economic freedom, and pro-poor, pro-rural public spending policy preconditions have simultaneously been met. Our agricultural development-led industrialization policy has created a conducive situation to address the problem of mass poverty, given most of the population lived in countryside and deployed for their livelihood and agriculture by raising farm incomes. I would therefore suggest for brotherly countries, including Nigeria, that adoption of sound macroeconomic policies and the establishment of economic freedom for farmers, pastoralists, and small entrepreneurs, the evidence from Ethiopia and elsewhere in East Asia is the best learning experience for policymakers. This shift can easily be emulated during deep national crisis, which is the case in most of our countries in the continent. Rapid and sustained economic growth and associated poverty reduction are preconditions for peace and stability in a certain country. During my administration, my party, myself, and my top advisors were aware that past progress in Ethiopia is one indication of what the country and its people are capable of. But we are also acknowledged that that was only a beginning, a good beginning. We did not relent. We kept making efforts to craft policies and programs that could make the greatest impact in the lives of the greatest number of our people. With this principle, just like successive governments, my administration was committed to ensuring that every Ethiopian has access to both the basic services and the opportunities that they need for a fulfilling life. And we knew that delivering that commitment requires sustained growth and transformation of our economy. Our vision was to become a middle-income country by 2025. This vision was the driver that propelled Ethiopia forward throughout the 6 years that I was the Prime Minister. The first phase of our country's growth and transformation plan, which I inherited from my predecessor, gave a tangible shape to this vision. My administration eventually crafted our second growth and transformation plan, which further set out programs and initiatives that build on our past agricultural and rural development successes and charted a new course for sustaining our growth and improving the quality of life for our people. You can't skip this process. The second growth and transformation plan, among others, emphasized the power of industrialization and the role of the private sector, both multinationals and domestic firms, in delivering development results. The plan also recognized that securing the resources and enterprise to deliver industrialization and vibrant private sector will depend to a significant extent on the energy and innovative spirit of the Ethiopians. And so we made bold investments in enduring in education and catering for the health of our people. We established 50 public universities in 15 years and more than 200 technical and vocational education and training institutes, which focuses creating human capital for our next phase of development trajectory. We also made deliberate efforts to create an enabling business environment to attract foreign direct investment. This calls to invest heavily on green and renewable energy, including early launched hydropower projects and new green sources. Currently, around 12,000 megawatts under construction, which brings our total installed capacity to 17,500 megawatts. You also know that we have a grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which caters 6,000 megawatts alone. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, now I want to commend successive administrations in Nigeria for their efforts towards uniting the diverse ethnic groups in the country despite the odds. Nigeria has survived multiple incidents of social unrest and a wide array of insecurity challenges which have threatened the peaceful coexistence of her citizens in more than a decade. Fresh and reprisal attacks from the Boko Haram terrorist group, increasing banditry and kidnapping cases, and recurring communal clashes between farmers and herdsmen have constrained economic growth and worsened growth inclusiveness. One of the landmark achievements noticeable in the Nigerian polity is that the peaceful handover of government. Political history in Africa has over time shown how African leaders, due to selfish interests, have stayed tight in the corridors of power beyond the constitutional provisions. A compelling case in point are the recent takeovers of government by members of the military in Mali and Guinea. This is a key lesson for other African countries. Another notable achievement of the Nigerian government is the giant stride made in infrastructure development. The establishment of the Infrastructure Development Company, for instance, is a step in the right direction to encourage effective partnerships with the organized private sector, investors, and development partners in bridging the huge infrastructure gap in Nigeria. It's also important that the country pay close attention to cross-border infrastructure development, considering the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. On economic policy, I also want to commend the Nigerian government on its role, particularly the deployment of fiscal and monetary stimulus measures that aided economic recovery in the fourth quarter of 2020, after the country hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Nonetheless, the enormous task before the Nigerian government is to accelerate economic growth and improve the inclusiveness of the so desired high growth. One key challenge facing virtually all African economies is the lack of continuity in government social investment programs and development plans due to political reasons. The superfluous economic growth in Ethiopia over the years is not unprecedented, as my administration played a key role in the implementation of the Growth and Transformation Plan, the first, launched by my predecessor, and the commitment of the GTP2. Notable achievements of this plan are, but not limited to, completion of 13 major industrial parks development projects, including that in Hawassa and Mekelle Industrial Park, which generates jobs to 1 million Ethiopians, Addis Ababa Light Rail, Gilgal Gibe 3 Dam, the new Addis Ababa Djibouti Railway, as well as the major highways. Second, the realization of a double-digit growth of the real gross domestic product, GDP, ever since Ethiopia subsists amongst the world's fastest growing economy until to date. The realization of the MEDG goal, one, of having extreme poverty between 2000 and 2015. I am proud to announce that Ethiopia has achieved 7 out of the 8 MEDG goals in 2015. Under my administration, Ethiopia bagged impressive sovereign credit ratings from key global rating agencies in 2014. A B1 rating from Moody and B rating from both Fitch and the Standard & Poor's. This opened the door for higher inflows of foreign direct investment into Ethiopia, particularly for the development of industrial parks, among other projects. Key amongst bilateral investors are China, India, Turkey, and major Western textile, garment, and footwear buyers, some of them with huge presence in the areas of infrastructure development, roads, bridges, and railways. I would like to say some words at this juncture. When we started to develop our industrial parks, the first experience we got was from Nigeria. You do have a very good regulatory framework for the industrial park that's going to be developed in Lagos. But frankly speaking, these regulations, we use them for our services, but Nigeria has never implemented so far. Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, the idea of job creation for peace and stability was popularized by global institutions time and time again, but not yet being properly translated into practice in a wide scale in fragile and chronically conflict-affected countries. Where do these young boys and girls live in? Is it not in rural Africa, or is it not in rural Nigeria and low-income urban areas in Nigeria? Doesn't it make sense for governments, international agencies, and businesses, both domestic and foreign, jointly develop programs to create jobs in a very large number over longer time period, like, for example, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, to provide work for young people who might otherwise become instruments for violence and organized crime, and sometimes radicalized to join terrorist groups. According to the recent reports of International Alert, integrating peace and stability into government economic development strategies and goals from the onset has paramount importance. When people are genuinely employed or self-employed in decent work in an inclusive manner, earn enough to live with dignity, and are treated fairly, they have stake in peace and stability. Decent livelihood opportunities which are fairly accessible to people from all sections of society, regardless of their ethnicity, religion, and economic engagements like farming and herding communities, that helps minimize exclusion and maximize social mobility. It urges for engagement than restoring to violent means. when citizens can accumulate economic assets securely to provide them with a cushion in time of need, to improve their income and invest in and improve the economy, and can do so in a way that's fair and competitive, they not only have a stake in peace and stability, but are also more empowered and have courage to say no to manipulative politicians and gang leaders, including corrupt security officers, who try to foment violence and organized crimes. When the state or other legitimate authorities collect sufficient and equitable and all-inclusive tax revenue and invest it to provide people-centered infrastructure, especially in rural areas, and services needed for economy by stringent budgetary processes that avoids lavish and wasteful consumptive use and peace to flourish, they increase systemic resilience to violence and organized crimes. The right kind of economic development and transformation policy choice can enhance or at least avoid undermining peace and stability, positive attributes in society. Therefore, focusing on policies that address the quest of majority of our people who reside in rural areas and urban poor neighborhood is paramount importance. Your Excellencies, in all the above, it is important that every one of us be in government, development agencies, or even in the business communities, we do it fairly and strategically with both accelerated, shared and inclusive economic growth and the strengthening peace and stability as explicit policy intentions. A question of intent is that distinguished the divergence and peace and security divergence we see in comparison with other countries and continents like in East Asia. This implies and therefore boils down to effective governance. Effective governance in fair and equitable participation, effective governance in activities which benefit and accessible to ethnic groups and religious groups, effective governance in addressing the specific quest of farming or pastoral communities and regions of the country, effective governance in tackling unlawful self-enrichment by political and patronage networks and corrupt practices. In a nutshell, effective governance to institute developmental political economy and mindset thereof. If we can do that and frankly and genuinely address that through our intentional planning process, I think we can reduce grievances between people and towards those in power. We can reduce the likelihood of people will be manipulated by those who would undermine peace and stability, improving their sense of inclusion, membership, and participation in society. And it can increase their stake in a peaceful, stable, and sustainable shared and prosperous future. Let's be pragmatic enough to focus on our people and put our people at the center of policy choices and its implementation. In conclusion, I want to say that there is a long way to go for the giant for Africa, and I hope that the government will implement to the later the great ideas that erupt from these deliberations in NES27 and set Nigeria on course to secure the future of its citizens. Thank you for your rapt attention. I wish you and us all a fruitful deliberation, and I wish you all, and God bless you.